It's the Brad and John Show.
It is, and this is Friday, January 10th. It is Trump sentencing day. This is C Block. Is this a bunch of hooey or what, John?
Yeah, it's hilarious, right? And what did I read this morning that Judge Marchand wants there to at least be audio, like to increase the intensity or publicity or something?
Once again, I use my K word, kabuki. This is just kabuki because of the fact that nothing's going to happen. What are they going to do? And see, the whole thing is, I don't know if you know the legality of this. The Democrats have said that Trump is a convicted criminal, okay? He's not a convicted criminal until he is sentenced. If you get a jury verdict against you that you have committed a crime and you're going to be put in jail, you are not a convicted criminal until the sentence has actually been handed down. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Well, but I mean, that makes sense by definition. You wouldn't be convicted, right?
Right. So today, Donald Trump becomes a convicted criminal. And you know what's going to happen on MSNBC. Oh, we got a convicted criminal as our president. He's going to be inaugurated in 10 more days. Isn't it great? United States of America, convicted criminal as our president of the United States. As opposed to, I'm thinking to myself, okay, who would you rather have, a guy who was sort of railroaded on some charges or somebody who can't keep his eyes open? Give me the guy who's been convicted on some trumped up charges, pardon the pun, rather than Mr. Sleepyhead Joe. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
but what you missed yesterday at the Jimmy Carter month-long funeral was you might have seen Biden falling asleep, but you missed the fact, Brad, that when he came in, he did a double back handspring and sat down right into his chair.
Right next to Chuck Schumer, right? Was that what it did?
Yeah, it was perfect. Now, you didn't see that because you're going to stereotype that he's old and demented and out of touch. But he's quite the gymnast.
See, I don't have a wife, but maybe someone will call me right now. But hopefully there will come a day, maybe John will do this, where we're doing the show together and John will say on the air, Brad, I think you've lost it. I think you should retire from doing this show. And matter of fact, I have a good friend of mine who's getting up there in years who is a voiceover guy. And he told me an interesting story. He has a voice track that he cut of himself when he was in his late 50s and early 60s, and still very, very talented guy, does a lot of commercial work, a lot of industrial work. And he says he keeps that track and he listens to it about twice a year. And he listens to that track he recorded when he was, like 15 years ago. He's probably in his mid-70s now. And he says, and then he records a current track. He does this twice a year religiously. And he plays the two side by side. And he says, when I get to the point where I'm not as good as I was at my peak, I'm done. And what's sad about that is it's sort of like nobody told that to Diane Reeves, did they? Nobody said to Diane.
Yeah. Well, she made herself a victim and made that, that whole thing of.
Or nobody told that to JFK Jr. or RFK Jr. Oh, he talks like that. John, hey, RFK is going to do a 3-hour radio show. Who would listen to the first 5 minutes of that? Not me. I'm going, I'm out of here.
Everybody wants to listen.
Okay.
To that. And remember, too, Brad, excuse me, you're not allowed to criticize people's voices, particularly women's voices. I'm sure you've seen a lot of this in the radio industry. Because any man that criticizes a woman's voice as being sexist, and people are more likely to criticize a woman for having a nasally or raspy voice. So let's just not be sexist, Brad.
There are a whole group of women on NPR. And here I sound like I pick on NPR all the time, which I do. It's called glottal fry. Have you ever heard of this before?
No, I haven't. This is a new one.
Or they call it vocal fry. Actually, if you talk to a speech pathologist, they'll actually call it glottal fry. But women, and this is interesting because this is not me saying this. This is actually experts I've heard saying this about young women who are trying to be more mature and not sound like they're valley girls. So what they do is they push their voices down, and as they push their tone of their voice down, their vocal cords can't quite operate properly, so they get that sort of that rough edge voice. And you know what I'm saying? Where it's to the point where it's not.
That's the Elizabeth Holmes thing. Remember the woman from the book Bad Blood that she had the fake blood sampling? Remember, she did that whole gimmick where she pretended to have a low voice.
Right. The other thing is upspeak. And that would be like,
Oh, I hate, oh God, don't get me started on this.
and that would be like
Brad.
saying, and here's my thing. And sometimes I've done this with people, friends of mine that I know, and I will say to them, I said, why are you asking questions all the time? Well, I'm not.
Yes.
Well, when you say, I'm going to the park today, in other words, well, are you? Well, I just said I'm going to the park today. No, you say, what you should say is, I'm going to the park today. It's a definitive statement. You end down on a definitive statement. You end up on a questionable statement. Correct? Am I correct, John?
You're exactly right. And one person who you like and admire, and I think is an interesting speaker as well, who does it constantly, is Gary Vee.
Oh, yeah.
Here's Gary Vee's pattern. Right now, it's about day trading attention. And what do we have to do? It's not enough to know what, but you have to know how. The end of every sentence is a question.
Well, you know how I cure people of this?
How's that?
With 3 words. And I swear to God, I've done this with people before. And I'm not being mean. These are people I know fairly well that do this. And it's usually young women, and to the point where I go like, it's the Valley Girl thing. It's are you going to go, hey, let's go to the mall? That kind of a thing. And I say to them, do you have a guy in your life? And they'll say, yeah. What if he looked at you and said, I love you? You get what I'm saying?
That's a great point, Brad. Yeah.
To the point meaning like, you look back and go, well, do you love me? Well, I love you. You know what I mean? To the point where it's like,
I know exactly what you mean. Now that voice pattern is generally considered to be the reason why people and probably young women do that. It's generally considered a sign of submission. So if it's like you're softening the statement of a sentence. And I had one of my favorite male bosses who was always above me in the organizational structure. One of my favorite coworkers, awesome guy, but he was an uptalker. And I think it's because he had, a whole lot of issues here. But also, he would end every sentence with uptalk, and then we're going to try to send it out by the end of the week. And so I think it's just generally a sign of submission. Like you don't want to appear that you're offending somebody, so you take the position of submission.
Can you imagine how different World War II would have been if General Patton would have said, we're going to go kill those Nazis? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And Brad, your example is perfect. Like the, I love you. because then I'm waiting for the other sentence. I love you, but I'm not in love.
Right. It's either a question or you're not done. And it's like, and once again, I came up with that. That may sound weird. That's my own little thing. And when I say that to people, they instantly get it because of the fact if someone says to you, looks you in the face and say, I love you. You get that, wow, man, this person loves me. But when you say, I love you, it's like, well, do you? That kind of thing,
Exactly, Brad.
Okay, you mentioned something earlier about the government and broadband, okay? Can I tell you my broadband story, which...
Yeah, please do.
Once again, typifies these government programs. Our KSOQ transmitter site sits out on Osage Ridge Road, which is in southern St. Charles County, okay? Little rural road, little 2-lane road. When I first bought the radio station, the road was rock. Now they paved it. For a while, it was chip and seal, but now it's actually got asphalt on it, okay? It's out in the middle of nowhere. We barely have electric. And my buddies at Quiver River, who just adore me as a member, and I'm a former member. Well, actually, I'm a current member because our Westplex 107 transmitter site uses Quiver River Electric. And you know what? I'm thankful for the fact that they're not charging me more for reliable power because the power is anything but reliable, but that's a whole other story. So we have literally if 2 birds get on the electric wire for Quiver River, things are right. If we get 3 or 4 birds, the power goes out, okay? And we have no internet out there at the transmitter site up until about 3 or 4 years ago. And one day I go to the transmitter site and I see these guys putting in fiber. And I'm going like, can that be? Is that fiber they're putting in? This is unbelievable because this was part of the broadband program, okay? They're giving rural America broadband in the southern part of, once you get South Highway 40 for the most part, in St. Charles County, most of that's fairly rural. So I stopped the guy and I go, who are you doing this for? Oh, we're doing this for, at the time it was CenturyTel, or what they call themselves, CenturyLink. It used to be called CenturyTel, telephone company out of Louisiana, and then it turned into CenturyLink. And now they sold off the telephone company to somebody else, and now they've renamed their fiber division Lumen, okay? So over the course of a couple of weeks, they finish, and one day I'm there. Literally, the guys are putting the finishing touches on it. I go, are you done? Yeah, we tested it and we lit it up. It's ready to go. We've commissioned it to, so they're a contractor. We've commissioned it back to Lumen, which means it's done. It's ready to be hooked up. You can get connection on, okay? So I try to find a phone number to call Lumen, and I can't find any phone number. So I thought to myself, when I'm on Highway 40, I drive by the Lumen building right there at 40 and 141. You know what we're talking about, right, John?
I know exactly where it is. Yeah, I know it well.
It's across the street from the Palace, the MoDOT Palace, which was built because of the fact that we have to have cameras and we have to have, all lanes occupied until the fire department gets where they block all the lanes, but that's a whole nother story. So one day I decide, you know what? I can't find who to talk to about getting fiber at the transmitter site. So I walked in the building, and I said to the guard, I said, who can I talk to about fiber? There's nobody in this building who knows anything about fiber. I go, are you sure? I mean, this entire building, there's nobody in here. The name is Lumen, which is now, which is fiber. Nope, there's nobody can help you. He says, you'll have to leave. I go, can't you give me a phone number? No. So somebody else heard this conversation, and they gave me an 800 number. I go on the parking lot, dial the 800 number. I call the 800 number, and I said, I just left your headquarters in St. Louis. I want fiber at my transmitter site. This is the residential division. You'll have to call commercial division. I call the commercial division. They know nothing about it. Okay, flash forward 6 months. I'm up at the transmitter site, and I see one of their guys out there, one of the, at the time, this was before they spun off CenturyLink to whatever it is right now. And and once again, how do you find out true information? You don't talk to the president of the company. You don't talk to the PR guy like John or the comms guy like John. You find a worker bee who's preferably over the age of 50 who knows everything there is to know. Get what I'm saying, John?
I get exactly what you mean. I do know.
So I go up to him, talk him up, hey, how you doing? Told him how I was. And I said to him, explain to me why I can't get a hold of anybody to get fiber. And he says to me, Lumen got paid, or at this point in time was still CenturyLink. CenturyLink got paid under the government program to put in fiber, but they don't want to connect anybody. So in other words, they got paid to put in the main fiber trunks, and they made so much money off of getting the fiber trunks installed, they don't care if anybody uses them. Get what I'm saying, John?
Yeah. I mean, they have no incentive to have people hook up to it.
Right. And the point being is, if you got to hook up to it, they got to send a guy out to splice the fiber, and they got to send out a guy to, plow the what they call a vibratory cable plow. They got to plow in, if it's your house, and they have to send another guy to connect it, another guy to give you a modem, another guy, and then you got to call 800 number to get everything. They don't give a rip. They're just taking government money. They're planting fiber in the ground. And finally, I said to the guy, I said, can you give me the name of anybody? Oh, yeah, I know the guy you can talk to. Guess where his office is?
Not in St. Louis.
No, in the Lumen building at 40 and 141.
That's terrific.
When the guard,
the guy up front was just a gatekeeper, and you were riffraff, and he wanted to keep you away from him.
I'm hoi polloi. And I'm going like, man, this is why I hate dealing with big companies. I hate dealing with big companies. And that's why guys like once again, last night, Ryan Lean, however you pronounce your name, I'll have to get a pronunciation from him again. He's a hands-on dude. His family runs his company. He says, I said, family? Oh yeah, my mom and dad run the company, and my brother and my brother-in-law, blah, blah, blah. And it's interesting. This is a guy who takes pride in his work. And I go, do you do much residential stuff? He says, we don't really do a lot of it. He says, but we're really good. And he says to me, you put my 6-man crew up against any other these guys you hear advertised. He says, we will make them look like kids. And I'm thinking to myself, I love this guy. He takes pride in what he does. He's good at what he does. He's prideful in what he does, and he does a damn good job. And once again, he's probably a millionaire. But you never know it because he's got his Carhartts on. He's there in his work van. He's chasing coyotes, and he spends an hour and a half helping me get unstuck. And once again, to me, those are the real Americans. Those are the people that help you. It's just like, for example, I heard an interesting story. Can I go a little bit long this morning? Do you have to go anywhere?
Yeah, we got virtual school starting here in a few minutes, but go ahead and take another minute.
Okay, real quick. Brian Kilmeade told the story. I don't know if you know this or not. Before he got into news, he was in the Sports Guy, and he told the story about how way back when he rented an apartment in Malibu when he worked in Los Angeles, and his apartment building burnt down. And I heard this yesterday, and it was amazing. He talked about this. He said, you would not believe the outreach that was in the area. He says, the Gap store said, hey, if you're burnt out by the fire, come in, we'll give you 2 free pair of pants. And he went through this whole list of stuff because he says he was literally had the clothes on his back. That's all he had left. Everything in his house or his apartment was destroyed. He had nothing. He had one set of clothes. And he went through this whole thing about how he went to this restaurant and there were signs in the window, hey, if you're one of the fire victims, come on in, dinner's on us, that kind of stuff. And he goes through this whole thing and he says, that is the true American spirit. And I'm thinking to myself, I get it. And then this happens to me last night. And I'm going like, wow, I do get it. You know what I'm saying?
It's a sign from above. That and the fact that Ryan Lean is going to give you some coyote jerky.
But I still wish that when my power goes out, who's the CEO of Ameren?
Not telling you. Absolutely
You don't
not.
want me to get you in trouble again with your comms guy at Ameren, right?
It's not an Ameren lobbyist that loves Brad Hildebrand's anecdotes
That's
about
right.
their multi-billion-dollar corporation.
That's right.
And talks about it.
It's the lobbyist, not the comms guy, right? Okay, John.
Hey, Brad, remember, I need to hear Sabrina Carpenter today, so let's chop, okay?
But you know
if
what?
I don't hear espresso 14 times in one car ride, not on your station, but on all of them, I think I'm going to go nuts, Brad. So let's chop with that.
You know what I think my problem is? I think that I haven't taken enough courses. So I think I need to go back to Fopo Coco, right?
I'll see you at 270 Tech, Brad.
I could go to Skakakaka, one of those two. Okay. John,
Yeah, exactly.
have a good day.